The endpoints of CD are C, negative 4, 5, and D, 20, comma 3. What are the coordinates of the midpoint of CD? So one way to answer this question is to use the midpoint formula. So this is one way to write the midpoint formula. So since we're going to be using our midpoint formula, it would be useful to label the points. So I'm going to label this x1, I'm going to label this y1, this is x2, and I'm going to label this y2. So these are x and y coordinates, so it should always be x, y, x, y. And since this was my first set of coordinates, I labeled it x1, y1. And since this was my second set of coordinates, I labeled it x2, y2. So if you substitute into the formula, you should get this. If you substitute into my version of the formula, this is what you should get. And we simplify that. 20 plus negative 4, that's going to give us 16 over 2, comma, 3 plus 5 is 8, so we get 8 over 2. 16 over 2 is 8, and 8 over 2 is 4. So our midpoint is 8, comma 4. So this is our answer. Anytime you're asked for a midpoint, your answer should always be in coordinate form, because you're being asked for a set of coordinates. In a coordinate plane, the midpoint is going to be a set of coordinates. Another way to approach this problem is to make a graph. You could graph point C and D. So point C is negative 4, 5. Point D is 20, comma 3. That's over here. And it's asking for the midpoint. Well, what's the midpoint? Well, the midpoint is just the point in the middle of CD. What's the point in the middle of CD? Well, let's think about it like this. From here all the way to here is 24 spaces. Half of 24 is 12, so I have to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then it goes down 1, 2 spaces, so I'll go down 1 space. So since it goes over 24 spaces, down 2 spaces, I'm going to go over half of that and go down half of that. So over 12, down 1. And I get the same thing. 8, negative 4 for the midpoint. So midpoint is just simply the point in the middle. Now what this means also is that the distance of CM is equal to the distance of MD. By virtue of the fact that this is a midpoint, you're going to have two congruent segments from the endpoint to the midpoint and from the midpoint to the other endpoint.